I think I was reading, you set up everything with your student loan.
Yeah, I mean, my first
Your
business,
first business, yeah.
it's a number of years ago. Yes, I set up. So I started being a promoter, and that was funded through my student loan. So I promoted both here in London and also up in Birmingham. And then it sort of grew from there. But obviously, it was quite hard to begin with, like any business. You can't expect anything. But it sort of grew from that, and then became sort of self-funding after a few terms, I guess.
I think everybody in the game, haven't they, started off as a promoter?
Yeah, unfortunately, everybody's been a promoter that I know.
Well, I was the female version, so I was a shot girl. So you've got to be the shot girl or the promoter if you stayed in the game for this long.
This is true. Yeah, I've done every job that there is, I think, in clubs. Lighting jock, wine sommelier at one point. I know nothing about wine, or do now, but definitely didn't then. So everything in between, just to learn all the ropes, I guess. So.
And what made you stay in the industry? What's been your love for the industry?
I think when I was young, going to clubs and realising, you're throwing parties, you have to look after people, obviously, there's a lot of responsibility, talent, I've always been into music, lots of different genres. And just seeing people generally in a celebratory state. Most people don't go out to commiserate, generally it's, to celebrate something or have a good night out, and it's their release from their day to day. I used to see that all the time in clubs where, people want this, to forget about some of the mundane things that, we all deal with on a daily basis. So it was that, I think, that really got me, into clubs, into promoting, into sort of wanting bigger and better shows, dealing with bigger artists. I guess that was my sort of aspiration.
Yeah, I mean, I connect with that completely. I think it's being part of people's fun and joy.
Yeah, and it is, isn't it? I mean, that's what people want. We want to, make sure they have the best time as well. So, which comes through curating that night, making sure they're safe, get home safe, etc.
And so you've been in the industry for how many years, you said? You said 400, but I'm like, really?
No, 400. I mean, a good... 35 years probably.
Wow.
Yeah, started in 98. Which isn't quite 35 years, is it? But a considerable amount of time. It feels longer.
Yeah, and so this was like post Summer of Love and all the rave scene just starting.
Yeah, I mean, I probably did. I had my first proper business in 98. So I'd started sort of 10 years, when I was younger, going to clubs, but also helping in clubs. So whether it was doing like guest list, did some spells as a lighting jock, all of that. So I was always in and out of the club scene, new promoters, and then, got into being more official, setting up my own business, and then started promoting. I guess, like most people, start with student nights. That seemed to be the easiest entry point for me, and ended up doing like 10,000 students a week across 4 or 5 different clubs. In those days it was a lot different. Like every fresher went to the best night, and they all had different nights, whether it was with sports teams or whether it was with other universities. They all had different nights a week, so it was quite easy to fill those big clubs.
And so how have you seen, I know this is a broad question because you have worked in many different parts of the industry, but what would you say are some of the key ways you've seen the nightlife and festival industry change since you started 35 years ago?
I mean, costs, obviously. I mean, there's inflationary pressures anyway, but I think the responsibility for one has massively changed. I mean, you'll hear in our industry getting very granular, but talking about things like Zone X and egress. So when people leave a festival site, 20 years ago, you would open the doors and that was your egress done. So, the level of responsibility now that we undertake is huge. We go right up to the transport hub. I mean, I sometimes joke about just how much we have to do, which is, borderline. Some of it I feel can be challenged through things called safety advisory groups. But, you know, there's an awful lot. And with that, obviously, there's inherent costs, you know, whether it's 2 miles of Met barrier or PED barrier, you know, all of these things come at cost. Other things that have changed, you know, which I do talk about a lot, is artist fees, you know, so well beyond inflationary pressures or inflation, which again, you know, is something that I've been talking about a lot more recently. And we really, as an ecosystem, I think the UK is one of the most celebrated sort of cultural hubs, you know, globally. We've exported, you know, festivals from here globally. You know, the US, which we're also trading, is in a more infinite position, I think. You know, there's a lot more shows here. You know, we're a tiny little country, and in the US there's a lot less, you know, and every state's bigger than us. So there's lots of opportunities out there, and I feel here we do need to be more protective of that ecosystem, because loads of people are relying on it. You know, and there's a report recently which is the whole events industry, so that's everything, hospitality, you know, it's worth 61 billion to the economy. And, you know, again, I talk about government, but, you know, that is a massive value. Lots of people are very dependent from the very basics of being able to pay their rent or the mortgage. You know, they trade in that industry. So we have to, as a nation, protect it. I mean, imagine, you know, this whole nation without culture, an independent culture, even more importantly. So it is, it's really important that there's more done to protect it.